What is up, everyone? We are in the top 5 new brews for Murders at Karlov Manor. We are at number 1, the last deck, and this one is the best of all. I've saved the best for last, so we're going to check it out in just a second. Alrighty, so number 1 in the top 5 new brews. This one is Bant Control, or Bant Ramp Control. A little bit of ramping, not fully ramp, but we got a lot of sweet new control cards in this set, and a lot of them are in the Simic colors. So the way we made everything work out is having Bant, so we could have the blue-white control cards and the Simic control cards. So yeah, let's take a look. It's gonna look a little bit unusual, but bear with me. It's all gonna make sense in just a little bit. All right, so here we go. Here's our deck. So we've got 8 1-drop creatures. They're all blue, and there's a reason for that. We've got Sleep Cursed Fairy, which is 1 mana, 3/3, flying ward 2. And we got Spyglass Siren, a 1 mana, 1/1 with flying that makes a map token. And so why do we need to have 1 mana creatures? And why these creatures? So there's a new card in the set called Repulsive Mutation. And this is X and a green blue. But X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, then counter a target spell unless its controller pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So the reason we want to have 1 mana creatures, especially Sleep Cursed Fae, is because then on turn 2 we can cast Repulsive Mutation and essentially get a mana leak. Now, we can cast it with the Spyglass Siren as well. It's not a mana leak. It's only gonna, have the, like they have to pay 1 mana to counter that. So, it's not quite as good with the Spyglass Siren, but still pretty good. And, maybe you can crack the map later and make it a 2/2, or you can pay this with X, put some counters on it, make it bigger and counter more stuff. So either way, it's a very solid counter spell, this Repulsive Mutation. Late game, even if you're not countering something, you can just, do X is 5 or something, put 5 counters and swing in. So it's pretty flexible in that sense as well. And then, of course, we're playing Bant to have white, so we can play No More Lies, the other very good counterspell in this new set. And Get Lost, another good removal that's in white. That's another reason for white. And then also there's a new removal, Buried in the Garden, which is a removal that ramps you a little bit. So this is a green and a white and 2 colorless. So that's another reason why we needed to have the white in the deck to go along with this one. And then the reason I mentioned there's some ramp in the deck was because of Buried in the Garden, and also because we're running Kellan, Inquisitive Prodigy. So Kellan is a pretty solid creature in this set, which has an adventure for blue and a green, which says investigate, and then you may play an additional land this turn. So it's a very similar to Growth Spiral. The Growth Spiral does draw you the card immediately. That part's not as good, but it's attached to a pretty solid creature, so, we'll take it. And then, usually on turn 2, you have extra lands in your hand, so it's not that unreasonable to, cast this in normal games and be able to use it to ramp you. On top of that, we're playing the Spyglass Siren, which creates map tokens, so potentially you could use the map token to get an extra land if you really needed to. That would have to be turn 3, I suppose, because you need to pay 1 to crack the map, and then 2 to cast a spell. So yeah, either way, it's most likely going to be valuable as that sorcery. And then turn 4, you get this pretty good creature, which is 2 green and a blue for a 3/4, flying with vigilance. Whenever it attacks, destroy up to 1 target artifact. If you controlled that permanent, draw a card. So you can swing in. You can turn your maps into cards. You can turn your clues that you got from the investigation half of this into cards. You have a few other ways to make artifacts in the deck, so you can turn those into cards as well. So there's there's a lot of synergy going on with Kellan swinging in and drawing you cards. So it's a very solid body for 4 mana for sure. And um, so we're ramping with Buried in the Garden, and we're ramping with Kellan's Adventure side. So what are we ramping to? Well, we've got a series of kind of bigger creatures and bigger spells. So we have one Ezram, Agency Chief, solid new. Uh, it's a 5 mana creature, but you probably want to play it on 6 because you can pay 1 mana to give it hexproof, and it comes in and it makes 2 clues. Again, Kellan can work with that to get you some cards, but we're already making maps and clues with these 2 spells, so Ezram can use that to his advantage to get hexproof early on, like the first turn you play it. So that's really nice. We're also playing 2 Intrude on the Mines, which is a way to kind of find our win cons, our big creatures. It also creates an artifact creature, so that's another thing that we can use with Kellan if we really want to. Uh, so yeah, and then the creatures, all of these creatures, of course, work still greatly with Repulsive Mutation, which makes things bigger and counter stuff. So they're all gonna work together quite nicely. We also have the Hornlock Whale because we needed a little bit more early game removal to go with our Get Losts and our counter spells. So we have that on the adventure side, and then the body side is just a decent body. You know, a flash 6/6 with Ward 2, not too shabby. And I guess if you really have a ton of mana, if you somehow have 8 mana, you could flash this in and then cast your Repulsive Mutation. That's probably not very realistic, but it's an option if something would happen. So there is that. You could also kind of do the same thing with Intrude on the Mine, cast it for 5, and then get your creature, and then cast the Repulsive Mutation for 2. So that's 7 mana to do kind of the same thing. So there's some interesting plays you can do towards the mid to late game with that. And then finally, the last few creatures we got one of each of these threefold Thunder Hulk, 7 mana, enters battlefield with 3/1/1/1 counters. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you create 1/1 colorless gnome artifact tokens equal to its power. So you're going to get a 3/3 and 3/1/1s when it first comes in. You can also sacrifice an artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So any of these laying around map tokens or the clue tokens that we have, we can use that to pump up our Thunder Hulk. And also we can use the gnomes it generates to draw cards with Kellan or to make our Ezram hexproof. So again, all of that artifact synergy going on there is working to our advantage. And then Titan of Industry, just a really solid 7 mana play. Destroys artifacts or enchantments, gains life, creates a body, creates a shield counter. Very annoying for the opponent. And finally, we have one Galta, an 8 mana card. This one might be a stretch. I don't know if our ramping is good enough to get to 8 very like reliably, but if we can play this down and we can play everything else from our hand. So, you know, if you have like the nut draw where you have Kellan into Buried in the Garden, then maybe you can get to Galta quick enough where you can play the rest of the cards from your hand. All right, and then to go with this, because we're playing the Kellan, which wants to play additional lands, we have to play a little bit extra lands than normal. We have 27. You could go to 28. I'm trying out 27 for now to see how it feels. And then we've got kind of a mix of different lands in the different colors. Make sure we have the right color for what we need to play. Blue it being our most important one because it's our turn 1 play and essentially turn 2 play with No More Lies or Repulsive Mutation. All right, well that is the main idea of the deck. So it's a Bant control deck using the 2 really good counter spells that got printed in the new set. And also Sleep Curse Fae just really works out great with this mutation here. So early game you use it as your counter like buff, and then late game it can be a nice blocker. And you can also pump your extra mana that you've got into untapping it, you know, when you use Buried in the Garden or something like that. So yeah. that's the deck. Of course, there will be adjustments after the set comes out. That always happens, but this is the concept, and I'm really excited for it. It looks pretty sweet. Like these two cards, Repulsive Mutation and Kellan, both very sweet cards. I usually don't like Simic, but we're just splashing a little bit to get this control shell going for us, and the land's definitely there to have the right mana fixing. So yeah, seems good. So that's going to be it for the top 5 new brews. We'll probably have some honorable mentions coming up after this, and then the new set is going to be out before you even know it. So go out there, have some fun, and until next time, see ya.